Introduction to Art Cinema. Art cinema is a phrase that often pops up in studying film, especially film history, classing out specific filmmakers, films, writers, and even specific audiences. In comparison to the extravagant cinemas of today's age and the vaudevillian ways of old, art cinema is presented in smaller film theaters. It also targets a more higher intellectual group of people as its audience. The filmmakers classed in this category are usually European pioneers, such as Michelangelo Antonioni, Federico Fellini, Ingmar Bergman, and Jean-Luc Godard, to name a few. The authors. With art cinema came the auteur theory, or the idea of authorship. By definition, auteur is a filmmaker whose personal influence and artistic control over a movie are so great that the filmmaker is regarded as the author of the movie. This theory originated from François Truffaut's Ahirs du Cinéma, published in 1954. According to Truffaut, an auteur transforms a film into a personal piece or an expression of personality within their film. Andrew Sarris, an American critic and dubbed the Superman of auteur theory, Sarris elaborated from Truffaut's definition of said theory. In his article, Notes on Auteur Theory in 1962, he set the standards and structure for a filmmaker to even be considered an auteur. First rule: a great director must at least be a good director, or simply, the film the director makes has to be at least technically competent. Number 2. A filmmaker must show certain unique characteristics over multiple films. Number 3. The more obstacles the director has to push through in order to get his or her vision into fruition, the more auteur they will be. This rule is very subjective. Now the question is, does these rules apply to one of the most influential filmmakers in history? Enter George Walton Lucas Jr., or better known, George Lucas, most known for creating one of the most popular and everlasting franchises not only in film, but in pop culture history. At an immediate glance, George Lucas might be the very definition of an auteur should be, as he has personal influence and artistic control over his movies, and is basically the author of said movies. But his name rarely ever comes up in the list of famous and impactful auteurs. Why is that? Maybe some people might argue that he didn't direct 2 out of the 3 original Star Wars films, therefore lessening his chances of being considered an auteur. But Lucas was still the one that created the story, and it is apparent that his influence is sensed in these 2 films. And according to the definition of auteur, it counts. Here, we will use the aforementioned Andrew Sarris' 3 rule to be considered an auteur to examine Lucas' auteur credentials. First rule: a great director has to at least be a good director. Throughout all of George Lucas' filmography, whether it's from American Graffiti or any of the Star Wars features he directed, nobody will say that none of them was not at least technically competent. Take Star Wars: A New Hope, for example. This 1977 sci-fi is still to this day regarded as one of the most revolutionary films of all time, with its compelling story of a hero's journey, great world building, and what would later become a huge hit not only in the box office but also a lot of people's life. So, George Lucas passes the first rule. Second rule: a director must show certain unique characteristics over multiple films. His films tend to tackle post-colonialism, or simply just a story of indictment against big governments. For example, the obvious, Star Wars: A New Hope, with the rebels' attempt to end the Empire's reign. And another example from one of his earlier films, THX 1138, with the retaliation of THX and his companions to flee from the clutches of the governing Central Command. Other than that, there's the obvious theme in his films to mix CGI special effects and practical effects to convince the audience of the realness of his sci-fi storytelling.
And it slows the pace of the film down. And the story is not the settings, the story is the plot. You're always surprised with characters. I mean, in film it's even more dramatic than it is in in writing, because eventually you actually take a real person and stick them into that character. And that real person brings with him or her an enormous package of reality. I mean, 3PO is just a hunk of plastic. And without Tony Daniels in there, it just isn't anything at all. In the first film, we had maybe 20 colors to paint with, and this time we've had 40 colors to paint with. Well, it doesn't mean it's going to be a better painting. Special effects are just a tool, a means of telling a story. People have a tendency to confuse them as an end to themselves. A special effect without a story is a pretty boring thing.
The third rule: the more the directors struggle to pursue their vision, the more auteur they will be. Now, as this rule is very subjective in cause of the fact that every struggle and obstacle anyone experiences can vary in severity, importance, and impact. One of Lucas's struggles in filmmaking was when his first ever feature script was branded terrible by famous filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola. Lucas even considered just hiring a writer, but decided to learn to write instead. Another big struggle for Lucas was when he worked on his first sci-fi film for 3 whole years. He used his own paycheck, but ended up getting rejected by Warner Brothers. Not long after, he tried to make another film which was also rejected by nearly every company in his town. But he didn't give up. Fortunately, his idea was approved by Ned Tannen of Universal Pictures, despite the company's hesitation, thus ending with American Graffiti becoming a smash hit. In conclusion, George Lucas counts as an auteur according to Andrew Sarris. But as the theory evolves, there is no guarantee for filmmakers like Lucas. There will still be people that argue against this, due to Lucas's lack of actually directing the film rather than he just wrote and created it.